In this video, I'm going to be going through the rest of the controls that has been created for us by Microsoft to use. In the last video, I walked you through the standard controls. So, and I promised that everything will be explained in details. Unless you're very familiar with previous Visual Studio, like Visual Studio.net, yeah, all these things will sound like garbage to you, so which is okay. The data control I used to display data or to work with the data in the database. So if you're not very familiar with database, you might not be able to understand what I'm saying. So just bear with me. Everything will be explained clearer when I'm going to be working on each of this control in a video. Anyway, the grid view, the data list, the details view, the form view, the list view, the repeater, the data pager, they are all different ways for you to display data on your page. I'm not going to say more than that. And all the SQL data source, access data source, link data source, object data source, XML data source are all a way for you to create a link between your application and your database. So if you're using a SQL server, you use this SQL data source. If you're using an XML, you use this XML data source. Then we connect a link between your XML file and your page so they can exchange information. If you're using the link, which is another introduction to the ASP.NET 3.5, which is a beautiful concept, which I am going to be is an advanced it's going to be an advanced video which I'm going to be touching. You can use the link database, the link data source. You can also use if you're using an access database, use the access data source. So that's it for the data controls. Now next on to the validation controls. Validation is you know, sometimes when you go on the website and they ask for your name, you put your name and they say your email address, but because you just can't be bothered, you type something that is rubbish into the email area, and the application tells you, sorry, you have to enter a correct email. So how does it know? It's because they're validating your input. They're making sure that you're not entering any garbage into the database. So they make sure that they check that the email that you've written actually follow the principle or the format of an email. So that's what validation does. So the required field validator will be used to make sure that you fill in the required information. If they want your name and is required before you can press the button, then that's when you use the required field validator. The range validator makes sure that you enter a number between a range, or you perform an action that is between a range. If they say enter a number between 1 and 7, if you enter 8, it will not go through. It's going to make sure that you've obeyed the rules. Regular expression validator is the most complex one, but I'm still going to touch on it. This is exactly when you can define your own rules. You know, you can define your own rules on the internet. You shouldn't let people just dump their stuff on you. Compare validator is when you want to compare that what a user has written in one of your text boxes, or is similar, is the same to the. It's like when you it's like when you see a form where they require you to type your password twice. So they have to check to make sure that even though you cannot see the password because it's been masked out, you can't see what you're typing in the password field. The compare validator will make sure that the information you've entered into the two text field is the same. And custom validator, well, is what it is. It's a custom, you can modify it to your art content. And the validation summary makes sure that all the errors, when you get an error that please enter your username, or your username has been taken, or you've entered a wrong email address, or your username is required, all those errors, instead of you displaying the errors beside each control, you can actually have a summary of all the errors that occurred on the page on a particular place, so that the user doesn't have to be looking everywhere to figure out what is going on. They can look in one place and they can see all the errors that have occurred. So that's the validation summary. So that's for validation. I'm going to be touching on validation, which is a very, very powerful controls. Anyway, the navigation, this is your sitemap part. This is what they call breadcrumb. You know what they call breadcrumb on the internet, whereby you can actually you can